The standard full size. Every Glock in existence traces back to one pistol, the original Glock 17, designed by Gaston Glock, an Austrian engineer who had never built a firearm before in his life but brought deep experience with advanced polymers to the project. Adopted by the Austrian military in 1982 as the P-80, the Glock 17 became the first genuinely successful polymer frame service pistol in history, carrying 17 rounds of 9mm in a double-stack magazine at a time when most steel-framed competitors held 7 or 8, a leap in capacity that quietly forced nearly the entire handgun industry to rethink what a standard-duty pistol should be able to carry. That original standard frame size remains the foundation for every full-size Glock built since, favored for duty carry, open carry, and home defense specifically because the larger grip gives shooters the most surface area to control recoil and the highest standard magazine capacity in the lineup. Glock also introduced ferritic nitrocarburizing to the firearms industry on this original model, a corrosion-resistant surface treatment for the metal slide and barrel that competitors had never applied to a service pistol before. And despite plenty of early skepticism toward a handgun built mostly from polymer, that same standard frame eventually became the best-selling police sidearm in the United States. Nearly every other Glock size on this list exists purely as a variation, shrunk down, stretched out, or slimmed down from this same original full-size blueprint. The Compact. Introduced in 1988, just 6 years after the original Glock 17, the compact-sized Glock 19 shortened the barrel and grip by roughly 12mm while keeping the same slide mass as its full-size parent, preserving the exact same short recoil operating system without sacrificing reliability. Despite the smaller frame, the Glock 19 still accepts full-size Glock 17 and Glock 18 magazines, giving owners the flexibility to carry a compact pistol day-to-day while keeping a higher capacity magazine on hand as a spare. That balance of concealability and shootability turned the Glock 19 into arguably the single most recommended handgun on the market today, adopted by USACOM as the MK27 Mod 2 and by the Marine Corps as the M007. Every compact Glock still runs the same striker-fired safe-action trigger system that debuted on the original 17, a design with no external manual safety lever, relying instead on 3 internal passive safeties that disengage only when the trigger itself is pulled straight back, a system Glock has kept essentially unchanged across every model and every generation released since 1982. If a shooter can only own one Glock, this is almost always the one recommended by experienced instructors and gun shop staff alike, since it gives up only 2 rounds of capacity compared to the full-size Glock 17, while losing nearly an inch of overall length. The Subcompact. Shrink the compact frame down even further, and the result is the Subcompact class, led by the Glock 26, a 9mm pistol built specifically for deep concealment carry with a standard magazine capacity of just 10 rounds. Despite its small size, the Glock 26 keeps the same double-stack magazine architecture as its larger siblings, and just like the compact class, it can accept the higher capacity 15-round Glock 19 magazine or the 17-round Glock 17 magazine as a backup, letting owners carry a small, easily hidden pistol while keeping more ammunition on standby. The trade-off for that reduced size is increased felt recoil and muzzle blast, along with a shorter grip that leaves most shooters unable to get a full 3-finger hold, forcing the pinky finger to rest under the magazine baseplate rather than on the grip itself. That trade-off is exactly what subcompact buyers accept in exchange for a pistol that disappears more easily under everyday clothing than any compact or standard frame ever could. Glock builds the same subcompact concept across nearly every caliber it offers, from the 40 caliber Glock 27 to the 357 SIG-chambered Glock 33 and the 10mm Glock 29, giving shooters who prefer a specific handgun cartridge over the standard 9mm the same deep concealment option as the original Glock 26, the Slimline. Where the subcompact class shrinks a pistol's length and height, the Slimline class attacks its width instead, replacing the traditional, staggered double-stack magazine with a true single-stack column to create the thinnest Glocks ever built. The Glock 43, released in 2015, holds 6 rounds of 9mm in a frame barely over an inch wide, and it quickly became one of the most carried concealed carry pistols in the entire country. Despite arriving years after slim single-stack competitors from other manufacturers, and after Glock had already tested the same single-stack concept a year earlier with the smaller, softer-shooting .380 caliber Glock 42. Glock later expanded the Slimline family with the Glock 43X, which mates a slightly longer, 10-round grip to the same slim 43 slide, and the Glock 48, which pairs that same slimline frame with a longer compact-length slide borrowed from the Glock 19. Every slimline pistol trades some magazine capacity for a noticeably thinner profile, often under an inch and a tenth at the widest point, which is precisely why dedicated everyday concealed carriers gravitate toward this class above every other size in the Glock catalog. The competition, long slide. At the opposite end of the spectrum from concealment sits the competition class, built around a longer barrel and slide that stretch out the sight radius for maximum precision rather than shrinking anything down for comfort. The Glock 34 extends the standard Glock 17 platform with a 5 1/3 inch barrel, giving shooters a longer distance between the front and rear sights that translates directly into finer aiming precision at speed, which is exactly why the Glock 34 became a mainstay both in competitive practical shooting circuits and among SWAT teams that value accuracy above concealment. The very first long-slide Glock, the Glock 17L, pushed that concept even further with a full 6-inch barrel. Technically its own separate model line, but close enough to the Glock 34 that most Glock enthusiasts simply lump the two together as competition pistols. Neither model was ever designed with concealed carry in mind, and both make that trade-off obvious the moment you try to holster one under a jacket. Many competition pistols today also come available with a factory-cut slide under Glock's MOS system, short for Modular Optic System, allowing a red dot sight to be mounted directly to the slide without any gunsmithing, a feature that has become increasingly common across competitive shooting circuits that demand both a long sight radius and a fast, precise reflex sight picture. The crossover. Developed specifically for the United States Army's modular handgun system competition in the 2000s, the Glock 19X mated a full-size Glock 17 frame to a compact Glock 19 slide, creating an entirely new category that blends the easier concealment of a shorter slide with the superior grip and magazine capacity of a full-size frame. Glock later refreshed the concept once more with the Glock 45, updated with modern Gen 5 features like an ambidextrous slide stop and Glock's enhanced marksman barrel, a name that has nothing to do with the older, unrelated large frame 45 ACP Glock 21 despite sharing the same model number. Both crossover pistols hold the full 17-round capacity of a standard frame magazine while offering a shorter, easier to conceal slide length, giving shooters a genuine middle ground between a standard duty pistol and a compact carry gun, instead of forcing a strict choice between the two. The Army ultimately selected a rival pistol for its modular handgun system contract, but the Glock 19X still proved the crossover concept had real commercial demand, and one notable quirk carries over to both models, since their unique frame length means they cannot use a standard Glock 19 magazine at all, instead requiring the longer Glock 17 length magazine to function properly. The large frame. Not every Glock is built around the 9mm cartridge, and the large frame class exists specifically to handle bigger, more powerful rounds that need extra case room inside the magazine and a wider slide to handle higher pressures. The Glock 20 chambers the powerful 10mm auto cartridge in a full-size, double-stack frame holding 15 rounds, originally developed to give law enforcement noticeably more stopping power than standard 9mm service pistols offered at the time. Its close relative, the Glock 21, chambers 45 ACP instead, built primarily for the American market where that cartridge has carried outsized cultural weight since the IDU 1911 first popularized it over a century ago. Both large frame pistols use a wider slide and grip than their 9mm counterparts specifically to handle the increased pressure and larger case diameter of their respective cartridges. making them noticeably chunkier in the hand than any standard compact or slimline Glock built around the smaller 9mm case. Glock also builds subcompact versions of both large frame cartridges, the 10mm Glock 29 and the 45 ACP Glock 30, though a large frame slide assembly will never fit onto a small frame 9mm pistol or vice versa, since the two frame families use entirely different non-interchangeable dimensions throughout the whole platform. The Select Fire Machine pistol. After the Austrian military adopted the original Glock 17 as its standard sidearm, Glock developed a fully automatic variant specifically for Austria's elite counter-terror unit, Eco Cobra, using the next patent number in the company's lineup to create the Glock 18. Externally nearly identical to a standard Glock 17, the Glock 18 includes a selector switch on the rear of the slide that allows the shooter to choose between semi-automatic fire and a cyclic rate high enough to empty an extended 33-round magazine in just a few seconds. Because a fully automatic pistol is exceptionally difficult to control on target during sustained fire, the Glock 18 is restricted almost entirely to military and specialized law enforcement units rather than general police issue, and it remains illegal for civilian ownership in the United States under the National Firearms Act, with the extended 33-round magazine typically issued alongside it specifically to offset how quickly a full automatic pistol burns through a standard capacity magazine. Every other Glock on this list traces its DNA back to the original 17, but the Glock 18 stands alone as the only member of the family capable of true fully automatic fire. The Glock 18's very existence also fed one of the most persistent myths in movie history, the claim that Glocks are invisible plastic guns capable of slipping past metal detectors, a piece of fiction that has never been true of any Glock model, since every single one, including the 18, uses a steel barrel, slide, and internal fire control components that show up on an X-ray or metal detector exactly like any other handgun,